Coming up, an interview with the singer and writer of an all-time 80s classic that is as popular today as it was when it peaked near the top of the charts in 1980. I love this song so much, and you know what? It almost didn't get recorded. This artist, he moved out to LA, paid his dues for years. Nothing came of it. He submitted demos to every label he could with this song on it. They rejected him outright. So he moved back home. He took a job loading carpet into trucks to make ends meet. He figured it was over. Then the craziest thing happened. Find out from this artist himself, coming up next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies, Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you made the perfect mixtape for your crush in high school, finessing every little detail to time out the perfect songs for each side, you're going to dig this channel of musical nostalgia, I'm telling you. Make sure that you subscribe below, hit the red button, click the bell so you never miss an episode. Then you get notified about all of our great interviews coming up. We have some good ones. Also, check us out on Patreon. We've got some new stuff coming up there. So I'm excited to bring you another episode from our series, Revelations. This is where featured artists reveal rare stories about their biggest songs, biggest albums, along with fascinating insight about their careers you won't find anywhere else. On this installment of Revelations, we sit down with celebrated yacht rocker Robbie Dupree. He tells us the unbelievable story of the 1980 Bottle Lightning classic, smooth classic, Steal Away. Song has become an all-time tune with nearly 6 million radio plays. It's almost as popular today as it was when it peaked near the top of the charts in 1980. This is such a cool story. Robbie Dupree, he'd been rejected by every record label in LA. Pretty much. Sent over a demo tape and it included Steal Away. All the major labels, they looked the other way. So he decided to move back home. Even took a job as a carpet mover. He was moving carpet in and out of trucks. Then a miracle happened. So hard to believe, an act of fate willed his classic song into existence. You gotta hear it straight from Robbie in our new interview coming up. He also shares his thoughts on Yacht Rock and what Steal Away actually means. As we get into this interview with Robbie, I do want to thank our sponsor, Zenni Eyewear. Glasses that I always wear. You know, with Zenni, it's really simple. You choose the color, the style, the shape, everything that you want, and then you just put in your prescription. And they'll send it to you. You can actually, because you get up to 80% off regular retail prices, you can actually order 3 or 4 pair for what it costs you for one. It's really amazing. Just click the info button right up here and you'll get it. Here's Robbie. Let's talk about one of the greatest classic songs, smooth 80s hits, Yacht Rock. You can't really put it into a category. It's just a great song. Steal Away hit number 6 on the Hot 100, number 5 on the AC charts, went to number 2 in Canada. You didn't have a record deal when you recorded this song. As I understand it, you included on a 5-song demo that you were shopping to record labels, but you didn't find any takers. Tell me about that.
I was really pleased with what we had done. I was really happy with who I did it with.
Come on and hold me, just like you told me.
And I kind of felt like that might be the end because every company rejected it. I wouldn't say I was content, but I would say that I knew that I'd given it my best shot. One evening, I got a phone call from my drummer, co-producer, Peter Bonetta's brother, Al. This guy had stopped by my friend Al's house. He was flying home to England. He just stopped by to hang out before he went to the airport. And Al was playing stuff. I had nothing to do with Al business-wise. And he just put the cassette in, and the guy was moved by the song, and not that song, but another song that was on the 5-song demo. And he said, if the guy doesn't have a deal, tell him to come to Elektra next week. I'll be back from England. I'll give him a deal. And that's exactly what happened. Like, I let go and I was far away. I was loading trucks, a carpet in a place called Five Towns Carpet or something. Anyway, whatever it was kind of a hard landing from where I was playing music and recording in it. But I had to make a living. I got the call. Literally a few days later, I flew to LA, and it was kind of miraculous. And that was it. you know, like the scuffling was over.
That's such a cool story to go from loading carpets into trucks to having a chance to go and reach your dreams, record your music. Riding Steal Away, where did that come from? Because I know that you guys were just kicking it at Rick's place in West Hollywood.
They were letting me stay with them, and I was kind of moving around from place to place at that time. I brought a few songs with me. We wrote 2 more songs, and Steal Away was one of them. I mean, it was very unextraordinary. I mean, he had an idea for playing piano, and he gave me the idea, and then I wrote a melody and lyrics, and then later a bridge. And I never really thought any more about it. Even after we recorded it, I didn't think any more about it. And then when we got the deal, it became the song that was released as a single. Meanwhile, we had a little backload of songs that they didn't know about. And when they called for the album deal, kind of late, actually, in the game, they should have called for it sooner. But I don't even think they knew I didn't have an album deal. And when it dawned on them, they hurry up and signed off on the new thing for the whole album.
That fill me with emotion.
Steal Away, it's such a great play on words. I mean, remember that Bob Seger used that phrase in Night Moves.
And we steal away every chance we could.
But that was just kind of a quick lyric. It wasn't a main part of the song. But to Steal Away, that's kind of become part of the lexicon since that song became such a big hit.
The melody kind of dictated it, I think. When it goes to that chorus, I just had a da 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 kind of thing, and we like that melody. And then I don't know, it's just a creative moment that it's in your mind from somewhere, or like pop songs, they all come from somewhere, you know what I mean? And you just pick a phrase, and I did, and the song sort of worked. The last piece that was done was the chorus. I had the verse all together, and the bridge came into the song a little bit. The I Caught You Glancing My Way section, that was sort of an afterthought.
I caught you glancing my way.
We had the thing all finished, and then I got the idea for that little part, that little interlude. And then the band gave it life by, the way they approached it, the stops and. But I don't know, I mean, it's like any other line in the song. It's pretty basic rhyme stuff, come on and hold me just like you told me. There's nothing Steely Dan about it, it's just pretty, it's right down the pike.
Seems like Steal Away is more of a proposition, asking a girl to steal away into the night after catching her sneaking a glance. What's cool about the song, though, is we don't really know what happened in the end. That's what's cool about pop music is, it keeps you guessing.
And the songs were never long enough to get to the end,
Right.
So you have to kind of go out on the ride out over and over again, Steal Away.
I've heard you say in the past it wasn't about anyone in particular. It didn't have any special meaning. It was just.
No, it didn't. I mean, it was like all the other songs that we were working on at the time. There's a couple of things that go into songwriting. One of them is craft, the ability to sit down and to write a song and a melody and a lyric, and it's kind of a craft. And then there are other songs that are deep within.
Steal Away is one of my favorite songs of all time, and it means a lot to me because it's a song that means a lot to my autistic son. It's one of his favorite songs of all time.
Fantastic.
He sings it all the time. He's sung it since he was a little kid, since he was like 3 or 4 years old. So music is kind of his connection to the world. And he was just really, frankly, learning to speak. It took him a little bit longer to learn to speak. He was saying something in the back seat of the car, and I said, what are you doing, buddy? He says, why don't we steal away into the night? I know it ain't right. And I was like, oh my gosh. It was such a special moment as a father, because not only was he speaking a complete sentence. I mean, he spoke some sentences, but not too many. Maybe
Sure.
he was 3, actually, I think. But he was singing with the melody, and then I know it ain't right.
At first, this song was just a craft song. The meaning and all of that came from you and your son and all of the other people who brought meaning to it that I didn't have in the beginning. Later, I've learned to adopt a lot of those feelings, but that wasn't the initial hit, you know? I mean, just being totally honest, I could make up a story about how it was about a girl I knew, but I think it was about all the girls I knew, you know, and it was just the line that just kind of fit in the vibe of the day. You know, the thing is about a song that has a long life like this one, over the many decades, you hear all kinds of beautiful stories from people like that story, touching family story. And you do hear stories about, oh, that was the song at our first dance at our wedding. And, you know, so it picked up all this gravitas along the way, you know, because it lived long enough to have all these stories. And that's the great thing about having a kind of a classic song that goes on that long. I don't have any other songs that have that kind of attachment that I know of. You know, that one is like far and away big one.
Yeah, it just connects people and relationships and generations, really.
It's 43 years this month.
To think about, you know, I heard this song as a little kid. In fact, this may have been one of the first 10 songs that I remember hearing, you know, because I was born in 76. I was the same age, really, essentially, as my son that I was telling you about, hearing him sing it in the back seat. And that was a record that my dad had that he bought. He bought your record, and so I heard it through that. That's what's cool about the connection between father. You know, they talk a lot. You see that on TV, the relationship of a father and son playing catch with the football or the baseball in the backyard, but they don't talk a lot about the connections between mothers and sons, mothers and daughters, and fathers and sons, fathers and daughters of music. And that's
Right.
a huge connection.
Sure.
I mean, my dad and I didn't get along really at all growing up, except for music. And that was the connection. And to have that continue on into the next generation, that I can turn that over to my own kids, is pretty special.
Yeah, you know, you're right about that. There are certain things. My father wasn't a guy who went out and played ball with me in the yard or anything, but the music that they loved, I listened to, and I don't know, even the TV programs that they watched today. There's still a bit of nostalgia for me that comes when I see like my father's favorite movie, or, you know, it's just, those are the connections.
On the recording, you had some pretty accomplished musicians performing on the track. Who are the players that made the arrangement so incredibly catchy, especially that keyboard part?
Bill Elliott was the piano player, Rick Judikoff, co-writer and bass player, Peter Bonetta, drummer. We had a guy named Miguel Rivera who played conga drums, and Robert Palmer, not the Robert Palmer, but another one, played guitar. And their notoriety came later. They, you know, this was really their entree to the business in a lot of ways. And subsequently, in years, they got to produce many people, this same team. Got to work with Smokey Robinson and the Temptations and all kinds of people, Michael Bolton, you know, tons of records that they made. So their prominence began, like mine, with the release of that record.
Well, your vocal on Steal Away is so smooth, so soulful. I have to highlight your octave shifts in verse 2. Caught you glancing my way and I knew what you were after.
That's all I've got, like I just got smooth. I don't have growl. I always felt really bad about, for the music that I loved, I didn't have a falsetto. And so there was a lot of music that I was not able to sing because, of the limitations of my own voice. So I have to capitalize on the smooth aspect of it.
Was that kind of improvisation that happened in the studio, or is it just as you were singing the song originally? How did that come about?
I think that's the way it was written. I think Rick probably said to me, oh, well, on the bridge, that was my idea. The I caught you glancing my way. But the verses, some of the melody ideas were Rick's as well. I don't know, sometimes things fall into place. Like that whole bridge, I had a motorcycle when I was in California. And I remember I worked at a restaurant while we were recording. And I remember driving my motorcycle down by the beach. And all of a sudden, that little bridge section, very short section, popped into my head. Not all the words, but the idea. So some of it is just mysterious, that things just happen. Some things you really have to put the grinder on it to make it work. But that song just kind of flowed out. It wasn't difficult to do. And I was surprised. I'm still surprised at the longevity of it, to think it's being downloaded like huge numbers and streaming on Spotify, like 1.5 million a week, 35 million in the past couple of years,
It's so cool.
Could never make lightning like that happen again,
It's been used so much in pop culture. I think that's brought new life to it. I remember seeing it on Red Oaks, and I thought that was a great choice for them to take you right into the 80s.
Just a review so we don't have any misunderstandings.
It's been on so many things, even more recently, the Andy Warhol documentary. And I feel like, people can mark the time by certain songs. When you hear them, like where you are. It's like seeing the cars that they use in those movies and television shows. There's a 1960 Corvette, and so on. It's a time placement. And the music is a time placement as well.
Used in the Jim Carrey flick, I Love You, Philip Morris.
Why don't we steal?
And then MacGruber. Better Call Saul, actually, that was pretty cool. Are you a fan of that show?
Yeah, I am. Wow. And it was also in Orange is the New Black and just a whole bunch of stuff, I sort of find out about it from the person who handles the sync licensing for TV and movies.
Yeah, Donnie Brasco, I remember when it was used in that. Outer Banks, my son was just showing me that the other day because that's a big show for teens that like that show, and Forever. And of course, Jimmy Fallon, Yacht Rock has brought all this late 70s, early 80s, really high production quality music. It's kind of funny how they named music 30 years later, they put a name on the genre, right?
Yeah, and I used to say to people that were like peers of mine, kind of rejected the title. And I was thinking, yeah, but think about what they called it before that. It was like soft rock and AOR and, whatever it was. There was no great name. And this one seems to have really caught on with another generation. Anybody who doesn't understand that this is a new audience for music from 40 and more years ago, they're missing the boat.
That's a good way to say it. Missing the boat on Yacht Rock.
The Yacht Rock boat.
It's cool because your song is coming up on 6 million radio plays, which puts it in the top 100 songs ever played on radio.
I've always been very grateful for everything that happened because I was so far away from that happening. I wasn't somebody who came up at 17 years old and had all my success. This was something that came along later in my life. I was 33 when I had my first hit. So naturally, I'm extremely grateful. And what's happened with it, there's a synergy that just takes over. And we have this new chance at popularity.
Man, Robbie's so cool. Leave us a comment about this 1980s Yacht Rock classic. What are your memories of Steal Away? What are some other smooth 70s and 80s classics you'd like to hear the story behind here on this channel? Who else should we interview? What are your thoughts on the meaning of Steal Away? What does it mean to you? Let us know below. If you like our videos, we invite you to subscribe so that you can participate in our music community. Make sure to check us out on Patreon. Check out the POR merch below. Help us keep the music alive. Till next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friend.